Hello and welcome. Thank you for stopping by. I'm Trisha Shalo with Just for the Love of Stamping, and I'm participating in the Many Thanks Vlog Hop. I hope you had the chance to stop by and visit some of the other fabulous stampers and their beautiful projects that they are sharing. If you haven't made it there yet, be sure to click on the link to go and follow along. Today, I'm going to share with you a fun project using the Sweet as a Peach stamp set by Stampin' Up! So I'm just going to flip you over so you can take a look and follow along. So here is my card. Thanks so much as part of the Many Thanks collection. So I thought I'd kind of walk you through this fun little tag as well as the card to show you a wonderful thank you project that you can use or give as a lovely little gift, maybe to a hostess or to someone who's just done something extra nice, or maybe your neighbor. Sometimes our neighbors get missed, and I think that this would be a lovely little heartfelt warming to share, because I'm sure your neighbor's done something nice for you recently. And if not, save it for when they do. Okay, so as I mentioned, we are going to be using the Sweet as a Peach stamp set by Stampin' Up! This is such a lovely stamp set, and best thing is that it's even on sale right now. I absolutely love the font. I think this is why I'm attracted to this set so much, is that not only do we have a handwritten script font that's fun, but we also have all the little fun sayings that go along with it. I just think it's beautiful, it's fun, it's fresh, it's fruit, as well as little blossoms, but just the little extras. I hope you'll like those creations and love to try it. There's also a coordinating die set right here. So for those of you who maybe don't like to fussy cut, there's dies that you can use with your die cutting machines, whatever that might be. Today I'll be using the mini cut and emboss that Stampin' Up! Offers, because that too is also being offered on sale right now. So be sure to check out those deals. If you haven't yet, contact your local demonstrator. The other dies that I have are the contour, they're called the scallop contour dies. There's so many fabulous dies in here. I need to get them on a magnetic plate because they keep rolling around. But in this collection, we're going to be using this frame die, and then as well as this little mini scallop die. So those are the dies that we're going to be using for this project. So now that I've got the dies and the stamp set that I've shared, I need to share with you the paper. So of course, there's beautiful coordinating designer series paper, and it's called You're a Peach. It's so beautiful. Of course, there's lots of peaches. These ones are my favorite, and those are the ones I'm going to be using on this card. But maybe some of you are not fans of the florals, or the fruit maybe isn't doing it for you. Remember that there's always two sides to our designer series pattern paper. And on this, we've got a little bit of brush strokes, but then also polka dots. So we've got the polka dots and the stripes. So I think there's like fun, more basic patterns that you can use on other projects that are just as fabulous. And the flowers are beautiful too, but I'm actually, drawn to these peaches, but also the stripes and the polka dots. And then of course, they all coordinate with Stampin' Up's colors, which are here. And yeah, and on the packaging, it does indicate all the different colors that it coordinates with. So this is some balmy blue. We have some bumblebee. It also coordinates with some mango melody, early espresso, pale papaya, pear pizzazz, and petal pink. So lots of fun colors. But anyways, that's the coordinating paper that we're going to be using. And as well as some cardstock. So the cardstock that you're going to need is some Whisper White, basic white cardstock, as well as some Calypso Coral, and then some Pear Pizzazz. So those are the 3 color cardstocks that we'll be using, and then as well as various ribbons. There's just so many beautiful ribbons, but one of my absolute go-to favorite is this crinkled seam binding ribbon. And then we have some pale papaya, and this is petal pink. Beautiful ribbon. So you'll see me kind of using those on the tags here in a little bit. And Oh, blends. Definitely, I'll be using my Grinding Apple Green blend along with some ink. So we've got the Pear Pizzazz ink pad. We have Garden Green, as well as Petal Pink. And look at that. The little dimensional guys are coming there. I'm going to use my pick a tool just to pick that up and get that out of my way, because those little guys are everywhere. I'm sure some of you who have been stamping a while using those can relate. But I just want to get those stamps out and get the paper ready to go. So I've actually gone ahead and I pre-cut the paper for you, just so that you didn't have to sit and watch me do that on video. But for those of you who maybe haven't cut your paper, this is 5.5 by 8.5, scored in half. And that is going to be your card base. Then you're going to cut yourself a card mat. And that is cut to 4 inches by 5 1/4. And then you're going to also cut your designer series paper. And that is cut to 3 3/4 by 5 inches. And my apologies to those of you who live in the UK, because I believe that some of your measurements are different and they are in centimeters. Unfortunately, I just have the inches set out, but maybe if someone knows that easy conversion, can just type them in the comments, that would be very much appreciated. And then maybe that'll help me learn as well. Then you also have another piece of designer series paper that's going to go in your frame. So I've pre-cut this on the cut and emboss machine. And you'll see me using that in a moment if you don't know what that is, but I ran that through the machine, again, using that die in some gold foil. And that's just to look like a photo frame. That's what this reminds me of, is an actual picture frame. So I wanted to use it as that. And then this piece of designer series paper, oh, sorry, the paper that you'll need for the gold is you'll want to cut yourself a piece of 2 inches by 3 1/4 inches in order to run that die through the machine. If you don't have a die, that's okay. You can just use a rectangle based on those measurements. So that was 2 inches by 3 1/4. And then the designer series piece is cut to 1 3/4 inches and 2 by 2.5 inches. And then I have a piece of Calypso Coral strip, and this is cut to 5.5 inches by 3 3/4 inch. I also have a little piece of scrap white that I use to cut out this little rectangle scallop little piece. Don't know if you can see that, it's kind of hard on the light. But again, you just need something small. I think this was like 1 1/4 inch by 3 inches. And then you can just use that as your rectangle if needed. Okay, so those are the pieces that we need. I like to get all the pieces cut and ready to go, but I do still have some more cutting because I did want to share with you how to do some of that. So those were my card pieces, but since we're cutting everything, I also wanted to cut the card pieces that we need for this tag as well. And then that way we have everything ready to go. And of course, I forgot to measure this, but I think this is 2.5. Yeah, I usually do a lot of tags and I measure them to be 4 1/4 by 2.5. I'm just going to trim this down to 2.5 inches by 4 1/4 inch. And that's ready for me to assemble. And then we just need some scraps of the different patterns that you might like to use. And so I usually just grab whatever's left in my little, trims, my this and that from making other cards. It's sliding down on me. There we go. So we'll grab that piece and then maybe a thicker stripe piece. And then we'll put those in the pile. And then on here, I had a piece of scrap white and we'll do that once we assemble. So I think I've got all the pieces and then we'll use the ribbon afterwards for that. Okay, so I think we are ready to get going. Oh, we do need a piece of white to stamp on. And so I'm going to trim this down to 5.5 by 4 1/4 inches. And this will be my piece to do all of my stamping on. And feel free to make a couple of cards as you go through and do this. Sometimes I find making 2 at a time is a lot easier. So now for this, I'm going to grab the little trio peaches. Those are what I'm wanting to stamp on first. Grab my acrylic block. And now I want to show you how I did this. Oh, I also forgot a color. I must have put it away. It is Calypso Coral is the other ink pad that you're going to need. So I'm just going to pop those open so that they're both ready to go. So again, I'm using Petal Pink, Calypso Coral, and I'm just going to tap, tap, tap in the Petal Pink. So I'm wanting to stamp Petal Pink first. And then I'm going to use my blending tool. I forgot to show you these at the beginning when you need to pull them out. So I don't know, for those of you who haven't seen the blending tool, they are beautiful fiber hairs that are on this, and it's a concurve brush. It's so soft. It's really dirty right now, so I don't want to brush my hands on it, but it's such a fun tool to play with. It's soft and it applies ink to your project oh so beautifully. But for this particular one, I'm using this to actually ink on my stamp. So because I'm not blending into paper, I actually just want the tap, tap, tap because I don't want it all over my brush. I just want the ink kind of near the top surface, because what I'm going to do, except just wait, I got fibers on my, I've got some little fibers there on my ink. It must have came from my scrub pad. Those off. I don't want those on my project. Or maybe it's kitty hair. I have a funny feeling she was snooping into some of my stamps earlier. Okay, we're going to try this again. Tap, tap, tap. Now I'm not pushing too hard in. I'm just tap, tap, tap. And then tapping my blending brush. And now I just want to take the darker ink, so the Calypso Coral, and I'm just blending, I'm just brushing that over the over the side and blending that into the center. And so that's making that darker, or this edge darker. And so I want to do that all the way around. So again, I'm just going thick in that darker color around the edge, trying not to kind of get on the other side. And that's okay if I do, because I'm actually in the end just going to gently rub it along the edges so that it gives it a border. And you'll see what I mean as soon as I stamp. So I've got that all done, and I'm just going to stamp and lift. So I don't know if you can see that. It ended up giving a blend tone to my peaches. So it doesn't look like all one color. It's kind of blended the shade, and it's got like multicolors. It actually looks like a real peach color. I absolutely love that. So that's a fun tip for you. And that's all we're going to actually use that one for. I'm just going to spritz on my pad and clean this up a little bit. Okay. I'm just going to close those up so that we can move on to the next project. Now I probably should get out my trimmer. I was going to pull out scissors, but we should probably do this properly because I don't want to waste my paper. I want to trim that down so that it fits through the mini cut and emboss machine. So some of you guys might have the great big machine, and that works just the same, but I'm wanting to use the little mini machine for this project. I'm going to put in my cutting plates, and they are very well used. Just so you can see, look at that, all worn in, but you know what? It still works just fine. So I'm setting those on like that. And I'm needing to find my little peaches. And here's the die right here. And you're just going to line it up. At least there's a pointy part to the bottom of each peach. And then there's a little dented part for the tops. And so it does make finding placement for this pretty easy because the tops and bottoms are all kind of aligned. So I'm just lining that up like so. You can grab some washi tape or something to hold it down just to make sure it doesn't move. I never have luck with that. It moves on me no matter what. So I'm just going to tuck that on over top, put my sandwich. Notice the key is not to line them up perfectly, just to help with sucking it through. And just like that, it is cut out. I didn't have to fussy cut with scissors, but it cut my peaches out. It did move a little bit on me, but that's okay. I think it still works just fine. Now I want to take a scrap of my Pear Pizzazz. I am going to actually trim that down a little bit. I am just going to use scissors because I can trim that off afterwards. And I'm going to set that on my plate, and I'm going to grab some of the little tiny leaves that are in here. And so there is, I'll show you here in a sec after I get them lifted off. There's a couple of them. You get 2 inside the package, which is fabulous, of these little tiny leaves. So I'm gonna run these through the machine. I actually need 3 sets. However, there's only 2, so I'll have to run it through again. But I did want to point out, so although I have it all set up and it's ready to crank again, it goes both directions, right? So I went one direction, now I'm going the other. I'm lifting that. One came out, one didn't, but you just give it a little toss and they seem to fall out. And then I'll do another round. I only need 1, but you know what? May as well run 2, and then I have 1 ready for the next project. Okay. Now for this, you're going to also pull out your Pear Pizzazz ink pad that coordinates with this. And I'll show you why here in a second. Okay, we'll get that put away. Ooh, hope that wasn't too loud. And these little pieces. See, sometimes they don't come out. They do like that harder surface to fall out. Okay, I should just grab my pokey tool and poke them out. I'll just use my little brush tool, but usually they just fall out. But of course, because I'm sure it's because we're recording that's not happening. But there we go. There's the pieces. I'll put the little leaves back on my tray and we are good to go. Okay, so now what else do we need to cut? What else? I guess that's it. We've got everything. We can start assembling. So I'm going to pull out my Stampin' Seal. You can use whatever adhesive works best for you. I am just a huge fan of this. So what I want to do is put a little bit of adhesive just in each of the 4 corners. And then I always like to put a little one in the middle, but that seems to work well for me. And we're just going to center that like so. Now I can see that my blade, even though it's fairly new, is still giving me a rough time. And that's okay. When you see that happening, just pull out some sandpaper. I have a little sand block somewhere. Here we go. And you're just going to brush it along the sides, clean that up. And then that way, all those frayed edges just disappear. But again, that's also a sign that it's time to change your blade. Okay. And then same thing, I'm just going to put adhesive in the 4 corners and then a little bit in the center. And then I'm ready to mount it to my card front. Normally I fold this first, but for whatever reason I've chose not to, and that's okay. I just hope I got it straight. So now I'm just going to give that a fold. Usually I've got a bone folder that I can score this. Oh, here's one. It's just really well used. I think this is probably my original one. And I use it for spreading ink in my ink pads, if you can tell. Okay, so card front. Voila, we're almost done. Now what you're going to do is you're going to take this designer series paper, and what I've gone to do is I've tucked it. So I don't know if you saw that, but there's little slots in both of the sides, not these sides, just the longer edge sides. And so I'm tucking in this piece of paper so it slides through that little slit. And this is what's making me remind me that this is an actual frame, because I think it's just the scallop gold edges. I don't know if any of you have frames that are kind of like this. It just reminds me of some of those old-fashioned frames, big portrait frames that you might see maybe in your government house, or, you know, I don't know, maybe even in some of your living rooms. Reminds me of one my mom actually used to have too. So now all I'm doing is just putting some adhesive. I did it as close to the edge without going over the edge because I didn't want it on the scallops, but enough to hold this down so that it doesn't slip. I just love the look of it tucked in to underneath that scallop, but you don't want it over too much because then you'll see it through the top. Now that we've done that, I'm just going to mount that probably about 3/4 of an inch from the top. I'm just guesstimating. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it's just, I don't know, it almost reminds me too of like a file label. So we've got that in there. Now what we're going to do is we're going to mount these guys, our peaches. And so I'm going to use the dimensionals. I'm just going to put one large one on each backing of these peaches. They're so lovely. And then I'm going to use my pokey tool, which is just the other side of the spatula. And that's what I'm going to use to try and lift off the little backings. You just go like that and they're off, and you don't have to try and fuss with your nails. So there's one tip for you. And then I'm going to start in the center, placing my peach, and then I'm going to place one maybe this way. Oops, I didn't get that glued down enough. And then place that like that. Whoops, this guy's stuck on my hand now. And one like that. So now that my peaches are done, I can start assembling my leaves for them. Now, something I forgot to mention, you should probably have a surface underneath you in order to do this sponging. So now I'm going to pull out my Pear Pizzazz ink pad, as well as my blending brush. And I'm just gonna, again, I don't need a whole lot because these are really small. So I'm just kind of rubbing and tapping it in the top. And then I'm going to hold down one side and then just give it a rub like so, and then turn it around, give it a rub like so. And in fact, if you use a piece of cardstock underneath, you can even see the beautiful little imprint that the sponging of it leaves behind. But anyways, I'm doing this after the fact, after they're cut, and I'm doing that for a purpose. So let me again show you quickly. It's because, don't know if you can see that. You can't. But anyways, there is an indent of the leaf. And so I'm wanting the sponge to actually pick up around the edges of the leaf as well as that indent in the center. And that's why I cannot do it after the fact, or pardon me, pre-do the sponging, because sometimes, you know, you could just sponge your paper ahead of time, but I like the look that it gives after it's cut. And so that's why I'm doing this after. So again, I'm just going to kind of sponge it some more, make that inner part really stand out. Again, it's hard to see on camera just because it's so tiny and it barely shows through, but trust me, when you're crafting this, it will be wonders. It'll do a lot to pop your project out. Okay. So now I am going to use my glue dots. Okay. I think my glue dots ended up getting packed away in a box. So I'm going to try this the hard way. Let me, it's going to try and hold it like this and put some of this little glue, but I don't think that's going to work. Okay, we'll go like this. I really wanted to roll up a little glue dot for this, but that is not going to happen. But anyways, I'm just sticking it down like so. And in fact, you know what? Here's some multi-purpose glue. Let's use this instead. I don't know. What's your go-to? Put in the comments what your go-to adhesive is for little tiny projects such as this. Look, I got a little bit of adhesive, so now the sticky thing doesn't want to work. Okay, so I'm just going to put a little tiny dollop of glue on there, and then that way it'll stick. Now it's making a little mess. I'm getting it sliding everywhere, but that's okay because it's going to dry and it's going to dry clear. So we'll do that again. Whoops. So this is just my picker tool that's got that little spongy end, it's not spongy, it's sticky, little sticky end. And that's just helping me hold it into play as I put these all on. Of course, this is the one that I put that adhesive on and now it wants to stick to everything. Come on. Okay. Just little. But the nice thing about this is the leaves end up not all being the same. Do you see how this spread apart from me pulling it and using it? I think it's fine because it makes it look not all the same. And you know, every peach is different, right? Okay, so now we're going to use some Calypso Coral ink pad and we are going to stamp the thanks so much. And I already have it on a block somewhere. Okay. Wow, apparently that block is with my glue dots somewhere. I had a little helper cleaning and it's good. I don't want to complain. Any help I can get cleaning is really good. So why don't we use this? I've already stamped thanks so much. We're just going to do it a little differently. Instead of actually stamping on here, I'm going to pop it up on there. So what I'm doing is grabbing my dimensionals and I'm just going to put a few of them on here if they don't stick to me first, which they want to. Okay. So we're going to put, actually, I think I'm going to end up with 4 of them on here just because I ended up taking out one of the little pieces. And just, again, I'm just picking off those backings so that I don't have to fuss with it with my nails, using my pokey tool for that. And then we're going to mount that like so. Whoops. Okay, apparently I probably could trim the ends a little bit so that it lines up nicely and it doesn't go over the beautiful scallops. We want to see all the scallops because that's what makes this so pretty. So again, I'm just going to try and center this the best I can. So we'll just pretend that I stamped it, that I did just like the peaches. Tap, tap. So, and look, I still have some little pieces inside here. So you just use your little pokey tool like this to poke them out, clean it out, because it looks better when they're all like that. Okay, again, I am pulling out my seal to strip that. And now I am going to add some adhesive to the back, and I'm going to just mount this, again, making sure that the bottom and the top scallops don't have any of the cardstock color peeking through. I want to be able to see nothing behind those. So just kind of keep that in mind, because see, those ones are starting to peek through. The idea is just to try and get it centered like so. Now you're going to go and trim these into little tails. You can use your scissors, but I want to share with you another trick. So there's 2 ways. We'll do one. I've got this classic label punch, or pardon me, it's tailored punch, and I'm just going to slide this in and I'm going to trim it, line it up in the point, and then just punch, and then that automatically puts my little tail there. And then I'm just going to line it up to see whether or not I chopped off enough. Oops, I didn't, because it's sticking over the edge. And if it sticks over the edge, that means it's not going to fit in my card envelope. So I want to make that just a little bit smaller, like so. And then I'm going to do the same to the other side. So you can use your scissors too. The other trick is to go up the center and then snip from corner to corner. And then that should get you your equal tails. But see how it's too pokey? I didn't get it as nice as that. So I'm going to go back in with this punch and do it. I really like using this for my punches. And for the most part, I think I got it, but you know what? It probably can be trimmed down just a little bit more. There. And then that fits nicely. It does fit nicely, but you know what? I want a little bit more. And then this is where I can play. I probably could have cut that a little bit shorter, but then I wouldn't have been able to show you all these fun ways to trim it down for yourself. There, that's better. And then for this, I'm gonna not pop it up. I'm just gonna use my Stampin' Seal and then mount that directly below like so. And then if you wanted to pop it up, so if you're giving it to a friend, you can add that friend in there like I did on my card. It's entirely up to you. So on this one, I stamped on some scraps and added friend, but this one I don't want to give necessarily to a friend. So I'm going to leave that one off of it. So whichever you like. And then just to embellish it a little bit more, I'm going to add some rhinestones to my peaches. And these are the champagne rhinestones. Right now, I don't think we can get our hands on them, but I'm hoping they will be available again because these are the best rhinestones. But you know what? I'm sure you have all kinds of bling in your stash. Go to your stash, take a look at what you have. Ooh, and look at that. My guy's sliding lots. I really didn't get enough adhesive under there. So I'm going to lift this up. I'm going to put a strip and then tuck this all back in. Okay. Anyway, pull that off. And I'll show you again that final card, the peaches there. I've got to finish up that one. But it's just so lovely as a way to say thanks so much to someone. Okay, so let's add a quick gift tag to that. So remember, we've trimmed down all of the pieces already. So again, this is 2.5 inches by 4 1/4. And I want to pull out my scissors. So I'm going to show you the trick to making the tags. I'm obsessed with these tags. If you've seen any of the other projects, I've made them lots at Christmas. I tend to make one for every occasion. I'm just obsessed. Okay, so did you see that? I cut the side. I picked up the scrap and I'm just moving it to the other side. I'm flipping it so that way I have the exact same size corner. I don't know about you, but I sometimes, when I try to wing it, I seem to get all kinds of different sizes. It might end up getting a top that you don't like because it's too narrow of a top. So I just take the scissors again then, and I'll just trim it down to the size that I want it to be, like so. Or you can use your paper trimmer, but I use the paper trimmer the least amount possible, but that's just my style. So now I've got this. So let's do a little bit of stamping on it. So again, we're going to use our Calypso Coral. And now you're going to pull out those beautiful leaves that are in here. And I'm going to mount that to a block. And which block is this? This is a D block. Tap, 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 tap. And I'm just going to come in from the bottom corner like so. And there's my leaves. So now I'm going to add the peaches. And again, it's those same peaches, but this time I'm adding them in the Calypso Coral. Now I'm trying to line it up so that the tops that have that little notch cut out lines up to the leaves. Now it's not going to be perfect, but I think that there's enough give on this stamp and the leaves that if you miss, that's okay, because there's a couple of branches. So when I pull it off, see, I was slightly off, but you can line it up in such a way that it does match. It's actually very easy. It's not difficult at all. And like I said, even if it's not lined up perfectly, it still looks great. Okay, and then I'm going to grab some of the little blossoms. There's these little tiny blossoms. I'm just going to again stamp in the Calypso coral, and I'm just going to add a few up here. Not going to put a whole lot. I mean, you can add them where you want. Put some there. And then some down here. There. Okay, so that's the stamping. We've got the stamping in, but now we're going to use a Wink of Stella as well as your Calypso coral marker. So grab those. Trying to find the Wink of Stella. It ran away on me, I'm afraid. Okay. Well, it must be with the glue dots. I have one basket here and it's not in my basket. Okay, well, you'll get the idea. It's going to have the same effect as what I'm about to do with this marker. So, in fact, I'm going to put a piece of paper underneath me. What you're going to do is just grab the brush end and we're going to do some stamp or some ink flicking. And so all I'm doing is taking that brush onto my lid and I'm just giving it a flick, 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 flick. And that's giving it some speckles just to kind of add some extra texture to the background. Now, if I had my Wink of Stella, oh, here it is. Found it. I put it in my little tool caddy. Okay, so same thing. I'm just going to kind of squish it to get some of the ink running down to the brush. And I'm just doing that by pushing on the side and shaking it down. And then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to kind of squish at the same time I'm brushing, I'm flicking. And so then it just flickers some sparkle and glitter on. You do want to make sure you have a protective surface underneath because it will kind of splash everywhere, as you can kind of see. But I'm going to use that cardstock on something. So there we've added some shimmer. I don't know if you can see those details quite right, but it looks so beautiful in person, trust me. Okay, now I'm taking that scrap that I had and I'm just adding some adhesive, some of my snail adhesive, just directly onto the paper. And I'm adding my paper, just like so. And then I'm going to take my little strip, and you know what? Do I want it thick? I don't know. Let's trim this down first. So I'm just going to take it behind and just give it a little trim off. And then we can decide what we need from here. Okay. So there, now it's the same shape as the tag. Now I just don't know if I'm going to like that. That's too thick for me actually. So we're going to just trim that down a little bit. These little tiny pieces, they are harder to trim down a little smaller, but it does work. Just line that up and then hold it down and it should come off just nicely. And then just kind of pick which one you want. I'm going to go with this one. And again, putting some seal on it. And then I'm just going to mount it. Actually, I think I want it just a little bit lower so it fills in some of that blank space. Trim off the edge. There. We got our lovely tag. Now we need some ribbon. I'm going to grab my hole punch actually, as well as this. So I don't know. I know I don't know if any of you guys hoard your circle punches. I do, because there's very rare small ones, although actually Brew Up the Fun has a lovely die that includes a nice small circle in it. But sometimes you just need something fast and go, so I use that. And then you're ready to punch your hole. So I'm just going to use a hole punch, get that hole in there. Like so. Oh. That hole is a little bit smaller than I thought. You know what? I'm actually going to pull out the big, the big punch. This is my Crop-A-Dile. Stampin' Up! Used to have a long time ago. There we go. Okay, nice big one because I want to put in a lot of ribbon. So let me show you a trick. Here is that beautiful ribbon, and I'm going to cut off, I don't know, that much. Oh, I probably should have cut more because I'm tying a bow with it. Ah! Okay, you know what? I'm going to use that for something else. So we're going to cut it off about here. No measurements. I know this might be making some of you guys cringe, but no matter what, I just want to make sure that I cut everything the same length. So it doesn't matter how long I'm cutting it, as long as I'm cutting it all the same. Okay. And then I've also got some linen thread in there. Adding it as its own element. Okay, but before I start assembling the ribbon, I just wanted to show you a couple of things. One is I didn't actually use this pale papaya in this. So you know what? I'll use that for a different card. I just used this beautiful petal pink ribbon, but I'm cutting it in half. And so all I'm doing is just cutting it right up the center. I'm hoping that over time, the sides actually fray. I don't want it to be an absolutely perfect bow. I love the look of it all shabby and a little, little not so perfect. So there, I've just cut it in half, and I'm only going to use half. So I'm going to save the other half for another project. And then the piece I want to share with you is this white crinkle ribbon. We're going to give that a little color. We're going to color that green using our Stampin' Blends. And I'm using for this, the dark granny green. I want to see what this looks like with this color. For this one, I used an old olive color. So I want to try with the granny apple green. So I'm grabbing a piece of scrap cardboard board. This is just something from one of the elements. And I'm using the brush tip and I'm holding it down and I'm just dragging the ribbon through for the ink to pick up. So I'm just going to drag and it's slipping off for a little bit. So I'll just kind of go back and do that one side. I'm just going to let it do its course, run it all the way through, and going back and adjusting as I need to. Now you only need to do one side. That's the nice thing about this ribbon and this ink in the marker is that it's an alcohol-based ink and it soaks right through. So I only need to do one side of this ribbon because it's going to seep through to the other side. So it's all green, went from white to green, and the other side is already inked through too. The key is though is to have this mat underneath because you will wreck whatever's on your surface. It just needs a few seconds to dry. It does dry very, very fast. So that's a good thing. While we're waiting for that to dry, I'm going to pull out my Calypso Coral ink because I want to grab some scrap paper in the Calypso Coral just to stamp my greeting. And so for this, I put Sweet Friend because I was using that stamp. I was giving this to a friend. This one I think I'm adjusting and not giving it to a friend, but that's okay. We can put sweet as a peach, or we can put Sweet Friend, whatever you want to do. I just want to show you how I did that. Tap, 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 tap in the ink. And again, I'm just stamping on some scrap and lifting. And then I'm going to grab my scissors and cut that off. I may as well do friend just in case. Although I'm pretty sure I want to give this one to someone who I'll be seeing here in the near future. But I need to find a different greeting for that. Hey, so we've got our fun little saying there, and now we're just going to cut them apart. And so I'm just cutting around that H slowly so that I don't cut off any of that sweet. And I just want to get through that as fast as possible. Reason being is I do not want my scissors to slip in any way. So now I can go with my scissors back in and do the little curves all around the letters just to give it a nice fun look to go with the fun font. And then that way I can kind of grasp it and do what I need to get around the letters without cutting into them, but still, still going around all the letters. And so I am going to go into the little dips just a little bit. It is a little hard because these are tiny, but believe me, in the end, it'll be worth the little bit of extra time to do this because it just stands out. Of course, you can just cut this out off into a rectangle and you don't need to do all this fussying, but I like the fussying. Not all the time, but for these extra added words, it works. And then you're just going to put a couple of mini dimensionals on the back, like so. Whoops. There we go. And then down here, I'm just going to add the word sweet. And then friend. Or whichever word you want, because you might have a different stamp set. But I absolutely love this stamp set, and I'll show you a couple of cards that I made also with it. Now, sometimes you need a piece smaller than normal, and so I just cut the ends of my dimensionals because they're all foam. It's still double-sided, and that little piece will be perfect for on my word, my friend. And I'll just put that just underneath like so. Okay, so now it's ready to go. Now we just need to tie our bows through. So this ribbon is completely dry now. It's even a little hard and crinkly. And I just want to make sure they're all lined up nicely, and we'll give it a nice tie of a bow, and then you'll have a tag. And then just wait, I'll show you the final lovely project for giving thanks to someone. I'm so grateful for all my stamping friends and for all of you who are taking the time to watch this video. It's because of you that I keep doing these videos and fun projects, because I love to share my love of stamping with other people. Hey, and we're tying that here. And there we go. Whoops. Oh, those are fibers, or that's a piece of my hair stuck in there. Oh, it looks like a piece of ribbon fiber. Okay, good. I thought for a minute there it grabbed a piece of my hair. That would have been funny. Okay. And then just like so, tying a nice big fulsome bow. Now the trick here though is you're gonna, is getting that linen thread bow through, because for whatever reason it's small, it's thin, and I seem to, like, I don't think I got it in there. I got half of it, not all of it. I don't know what happened. Okay, so I'm pulling that apart again. I think I forgot to pull it down one side. There we go. And again, just like tying your shoes in school, just tie a nice big bow. Now I tie my bows upside down just based on how I wrap them around. So depending if you're right-handed, left-handed, how you tie bows, it will all depend on how you make that happen for you. But like I said, for me, I need to tie them upside down to make sure that the bow ends up in the right direction. And then you just play with it. You pop it up, you play. Now this little tip, because I was holding it, didn't get ink on it. So I'm just going to give it a little trim, or you can add some ink, but I'm just going to trim that a little bit. And in fact, I'm going to trim this guy a little bit. And this one. Now, a little tip to kind of getting your bows all nice and layered is actually trimming them so that they're all in a different length. That was just a trick that I've learned over the years to try and off-center it just so that they're not all the same length. And then that just gives it some fun little whimsical look. And then of course you want to add that bling again. Look, I'm almost all out. I'm going to be so sad because I can't get these ones anymore, I don't think. I'm hoping they'll be back soon. So maybe if more of us hope for them, they'll come back sooner than later. But I really did want to add 3. So let me add 1 up here. And then that is all done. Okay, so there's my beautiful tag. And again, as a great thank you, how gorgeous would this be just to add a plain white bag, maybe some dimensionals. So I'm going to grab just one actually maybe 2 big dimensionals to put right here. And then I need to pick them off, of course, so that they stick. And then I'm going to place my lovely tag right here. I've got a gift bag now ready to go for a lovely friend. And I just happened to find these super cute napkins that have little peaches on it that match my card. I don't even know how I like fluke to find those, but I did. It made a lovely little tag. But how perfect is this to go in the gift bag, add some tissue paper. You have a gorgeous card ready to give a thank you to a dear friend or neighbor. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this project, and I'd love to see your creations. So if you post it or if you make a card, please post them in the comments. And by all means, come visit me just for the love of stamping. I'd love to hear from you, chat with you, and yeah, take part in stamping. Thank you again so much. And make sure to go check out the other vlogs. They have great cards, like I said earlier. Be sure to check them out and say hello. Happy stamping.